Okay, welcome to Critical Weight Theory, where sometimes I look at the strangeness of cinema's unsettling films. I'm your host, Wade, and today I'm diving into a movie that's as visually hypnotic as it is narratively divisive. A Cure for Wellness, directed by Gore Verbinski, the same mind behind The Ring and Pirates of the Caribbean. This 2016 psychological horror thriller trades jump scares for something much slower, stranger, and more cerebral. It's a 2.5 hour descent into madness, wrapped in white linen robes and eucalyptus steam. But don't let the spa vibes fool you. This is body horror wearing a wellness mask. So, I do have to warn the people out there that you're either going to think it's a great movie or you're just not going to like it. It's one of those ones. I guess you could say that about practically every movie on the market, but when a movie is 2.5 hours long, it kind of deserves that warning a little bit more in advance because that's quite a commitment, 2.5 hours. So, what is the setup to this movie? We follow Lockhart, a cocky young executive played by Dane DeHaan, sent to a secluded wellness center in the Swiss Alps to retrieve his company's missing CEO. But once there, something's off about the place. Patients seem content, but too content. The treatments are bizarre, and the staff, they're quirky as well. At times, it seems like they're way too much on the same page and too calm and too much like they're all following a script of some sort. And the deeper Lockhart digs, the sicker things get until he's not sure what's real anymore. So it's really one of those sorts of movies. At its core, A Cure for Wellness tackles our obsession with purity and control, physical, mental, and spiritual wellness as a concept. It skewers corporate greed and asks what it really means to be well. Verbinski paints wellness not as healing, but as a ritual of repression. And the deeper you go, the more the spa starts to feel like a cult and one with eels. Yes, eels, and there are a lot of them. So if you are afraid of eels, I guess the spoiler warning will be good for you. There there are definitely a lot of eels, and I guess this wasn't a spoiler warning; it was a spoiler. Whoops. Anyway, as you can see, the movie has a bit of a strange obsession with creatures, but they're not really typical scary monster creatures. They're sea creatures. So if you're afraid of eels or if you like eels, this movie might have a certain reaction for you. And Verbinski paints wellness not as healing, like I said, but as something darker. And it's really a comment on how corporations have become the main controlling force in modern life. A Cure for Wellness takes that idea and runs with it right off the cliff of sanity. And there's a lot of visually stunning stuff in this movie that I should mention, though. That's one of the things that people typically like about this one. Cinematographer Bojan Bazeli gives us eerie symmetry and sterile whites, oppressive greens, and reflections that feel like they're watching you. And it owes a visual debt to The Shining and Shutter Island, while also thematically there's quite a bit in common with both of those movies, especially Shutter Island. When I was watching this one, I couldn't help but compare it to Shutter Island because there is some common ground here. Some people might even accuse this movie of ripping it off. Personally, I think it's different enough that I'm able to, not be that vicious as I watch this. I didn't tear this movie apart, accusing it of ripping off Shutter Island, but there definitely is something in common with that movie. And I guess you could also say it's a little bit like Cronenberg. I wouldn't say it's quite like The Fly exactly, but Cronenberg is known for those body horror things, and certainly you can find some of that in this movie. Unlike The Shining, this film's 146-minute runtime, it feels like it's a bit much. That's my main critique of the movie. It seems like it could have been shorter, and I always kind of hate that sort of critique because it makes it seem like I have a short attention span. But not everyone has the patience for the slow build, and if you're just not into it, if you're not feeling this movie, it's probably going to leave you feeling either empty or you're going to feel maybe angry about it. And the pacing, if it works for you, then it's part of the unease. But if it's not working for you, well, I guess it's a different sort of unease that you're feeling, but not the type that has you enthralled by the movie, but the sort that has you uneasy with the time that you wasted watching it, or whatever. This movie does have some standout moments. There are scenes you might not actually forget. There's a sensory deprivation tank element that no doubt will provide some claustrophobic feelings for certain viewers. There's a grotesque dental procedure scene that is certainly going to be jarring for some people out there. And of course, the eel filled treatments. And, if you're scared of medical procedures in general, then this movie is going to make you even more freaked out by them. So these aren't just shock moments, at least not necessarily. They're like metaphors about violation, loss of control, and the price of chasing perfection, I suppose. So if you're a savvy viewer, I think you should at least give it credit for having these metaphors because it's not just they're not just empty shock moments. They're all about the awkwardness and weirdness of about putting your health and wellness in somebody else's hands. And I think this movie does a pretty good job of making that seem like a strange process, like you're almost in an alien uh, center, I guess, and you're living through procedures that are awkward and disturbing at times. And that sort of fear, I think, is relatable to a lot of people out there. So that's why this movie probably has some cult fan potential, I suppose. And Jason Isaacs is potentially chilling as the wellness center's director. He has some charm and menace in equal parts. So his performance didn't necessarily add much to the movie for me. I was more about like the strange treatment aspect of it, the eels and whatnot. I thought I thought that was one of the main elements here, as well as the just the scenery. Again, it's a wonderfully shot movie. It does have some stunning visuals, and I also have to say that Mia Goth is an interesting uh, actor here. She plays a mysterious patient with a sort of otherworldly nature, and there's sort of a quality to her that adds to the film's dreamlike atmosphere. And of course, there are mountains here. So if you're a fan of mountains and that sort of thing, you're going to have a bit of a visual feast. And as you might expect, critics were split on this movie. Some praised the ambition and the visuals and the mood, while others considered it bloated, convoluted, and being too weird for its own good. You might get some critics out there who think it's just being weird for weirdness sake. Although, as I tried to explain, there's at least the metaphor aspect of it because it's trying to give the sense that the character is lacking control and his care is being put in the hands of people who have, I guess, abusive properties, if you will, and the treatment, it ends up being sort of dreamlike, I suppose you might say, nightmarish might be a better word. So it's a bit of a surreal storyline for sure. And the audiences were also split on this movie. You'll either admire it for its guts or resent it for wasting your time. I would say that, there is tension in this movie, so it's not just a bunch of slow moving ambient stuff, as far as I'm concerned. But again, I found the runtime to be a factor that prevented it from being as masterful as it could have been because there were just too many things for me to commit my attention to. I'll just put it that way. I guess that really does suggest I have a short attention span. But at the same time, I didn't care about the characters as much as I should have, perhaps. And I don't know if it was just me not being in the mood as much to watch this movie, or if the movie itself had failed. Because sometimes it can be a little bit of both. It's it's like it's like a certain type of album. If you're listening to a concept album, sometimes if you're just not in the mood for music like that, it's going to affect your perception of it. You're not going to enjoy it as much. And really, the same thing is true of a movie like this. Sometimes you're just not in the best mood for it. And that's why I might eventually revisit A Cure for Wellness because I do think that there is something that I potentially missed that may have uh, made me enjoy it more if I had perceived it at the time. So, A Cure for Wellness is not for everyone, which actually makes it sound like a medical ad or something. And it's again a beautifully crafted visual movie. It does have that descent into madness aspect, and it definitely prioritizes the atmosphere over the plot. So it's like it aims for high, and it doesn't always land cleanly. It kind of ultimately has a few low points for me that I don't know. I don't know if that explanation really works, but you know, it it was going for a high concept, I think, but I think the story, I don't know, it started to become a little bit something that I just didn't care that much about, I guess. I do appreciate what they were going for, and I understand what they were going for. And like I said, I might end up giving this movie another chance. So if you're drawn to horror that simmers instead of screams, you might want to give this one a shot. Just don't expect answers or comfort, and you might not enjoy it. I'm just going to say that. So it's a film that invites you in with a promise of peace, then traps you, and you're never going to emerge the same way again. So I guess that's it for this review. Until next time, stay strange and let those eels crawl all over you. You know you want to.